to show the first book that
Sure. Yeah.
So this is the first
This
book.
was the first book that
And
we
this
selected.
is the NCV Foundation,
That's
the
our
sticker,
seal.
right?
Yeah, the
So
Storylines Award seal.
all the authors will get this seal.
Yeah, all of his books have the seal on it, and every student who came to hear him speak that night received one free book, which we also thought was important because books are so expensive.
Right.
And it's just, they can keep studying from it, looking back at it, getting inspiration from it. So everybody who is in attendance, it was 180 people, I believe, received one free book that the foundation also supplied.
So I know that even Coretta Scott King,
Yeah.
which is Dr. King's
Exactly.
wife, right?
Exactly.
And she has the same
Right.
that promote anti-violence,
Right.
and I know that the way that my daughter and I go to the library is that she picked one book, I pick one book, and most of
Right.
the time I try to pick a book with stickers on. So now I'm
Right.
looking forward to like telling, no, you
Yeah.
gotta read the book from the NCV
Yeah, stickers
Foundation,
always
you know,
help.
or, you know, so that I know, because it makes her be aware
Right.
that author really work hard, and it's
Right.
so nice that they're being acknowledged as well.
Right.
And it sounded like this author, that you're making them not just get a sticker for their own work, but
Yeah.
also for them to do something else, social responsibility,
Right.
to help the literacy.
That's right.
And then you also have the next second book coming
The
up,
second
right?
book, we are so lucky that in 2010 we're going to have Naomi Shihab Nye, and she's written, I'm not even sure how many books it is, but it's more than 10, and she's half Palestinian, half American, and she's also works as a sort of goodwill ambassador for the United States, and she travels internationally talking about how the arts can bring communities together and how stories can bring communities
Right.
together. So she's really perfect for this, and she's just a very decent, wonderful, humane person who does a lot for literacy and education, especially with young people. So she'll be coming in 2010.
So then
and this is the book.
this will be
is
the second one.
Storylines, right, this will be the second one.
So that's
So-
really very exciting too. But you
Yeah.
also have your own book.
I do.
And I thought the title was really good, Where the Long Grass Bends, because my grandmother, who's a devout Buddhist, my grandmother always said that the more mature you are, the more wiser you are. You're supposed to bend lower, right? So that's
Yeah.
almost, I would think that that's a similar...
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I actually got the title from a Hindu story that my father told me, but Hinduism and Buddhism share so much, especially
Well,
the
the
stories
Buddhism,
at the root.
Shakyamuni comes from a Hindu prince.
Right,
So it's
right, right.
yes,
So they, you
very
know,
similar.
absolutely. And he had just always told me this story about a little child. I can't even actually remember how he would set it up, but basically a child in the grass being afraid, and her father telling her, don't be afraid, because when you see the long grass and you fear the terrors that might hide in its thickness, just think to yourself, yes, the grass is long, but because it is long, it will bend, and I will see what it hides. So I'm going to read from the beginning of my short story called Where the Long Grass Bends, and it's from my collection of short stories with the same name. What difference does my conception make? I am here, something practiced and charitable. Underneath the peepal tree, where the bats hang upside down, the sisters told me I was born of love, a love polar and incongruous. My mother was Garhwali and my father British. They orphaned me in the lake, where they drowned each other. In trying to keep their own selves afloat, they pushed the other down, again and again, under the water. I never knew them. My collection of short stories, Where the Long Grass Bends, came out in, I think, 1994. And my next book, which is a nonfiction book, it's sort of a family memoir, and it's about bicultural, biracial identity and in-betweenness and categorization. That's coming out in August 2010 with the same publisher, Sarah Van Books. And I'm actually co-writing with Silas House, who was our first Storylines winner,
Wow.
a young adult book right now. And it's epistolary, so it's in letters, and my little character who's 12 years old writes to his little character who's 12 years old, and the book kind of progresses that way. And it deals with environmental issues on his side. He's writing about this destructive coal mining practice called mountaintop removal that's affecting this young boy's life. And my little character is a recent immigrant from India, and she is dealing with rent control issues and getting squeezed out of where she's living in Chinatown with her family, and through the course of the year, her family, they're becoming American citizens as well. So identity and citizenship and Americanness, those are kind of her themes.
So how can story reveal human potential and trigger the human spirit?
It helps us make sense of the world around us and of ourselves, and it acts as a sort of guide. I know that maybe because I didn't have brothers and sisters and both of my parents had full-time jobs and worked a lot, I sometimes felt like as a child I had to figure some things out for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I know a lot of times I look to books and stories and to particular characters, and I learn from them. And for me, it was a lot of times with Hindu figures, like Ganesh, the Hindu god. I learned a lot from reading stories about him, just little life lessons. So I think stories can guide us and can give us a kind of strength, a well to draw upon. When you don't know what to do, you can sort of remember a story, and it'll help you.
You think people are learning faster today than a few years ago?
I do, and I think that probably has to do with the
Online?
internet, yeah, and the world becoming smaller. Yeah, I think people just have an opportunity to communicate with each other with more ease and quickness these days. And I know certain things have amazed me as a teacher. I was a visiting writer in residence at Knox College in Illinois last year.
Right.
And I was teaching undergraduates there. It was mostly juniors and seniors. And I was teaching this one class, a cultural studies class, and we talked a lot about race, ethnicity, immigration, sexuality, and gender. And I was very nervous with one of the first books I assigned is by a writer named Dorothy Allison, and her identity sort of that she claims and she puts forth in her writing and what she does to help people in the world is she's working class lesbian, I would say, and Southern Appalachian.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was very nervous when I was bringing this book to the students that they would be uncomfortable with her sexuality and the way that she talks about it in the book. And I had the same experience with some of the books and stories I assigned about race and immigration. I just was nervous because they were mostly Caucasian Midwestern kids, and I just thought,
what part will invoke them?
Right. How will they relate to this? I want them to feel comfortable, but I also want to be able to change their minds if they don't already feel a certain way.
Right.
And they amazed me. These 17 and 18-year-old kids were so different from my generation. And when I was 17 and 18, kids around me, for the most part, I'm making generalizations, of course, but they weren't this open-minded as these kids are today. They just were so casual about everything. So they said, yeah, of course, it doesn't matter. What's the difference? Let's just hear about this person's experience.
Wow.
And I think for the most part, they were open-minded, and it seemed to me that it was because people learn faster and have more of a chance to talk to each other. And of course, the world is still filled with so much injustice and discrimination of all kinds in terms of class, race, gender, sexuality, etc. But they just seem further along, more evolved than my generation.
I think you have to give yourself credit. I really believe that the kids, the way they are, is because you've created the template.
Yeah, sure.
And you've created that safe place.
Sure. And all the preceding generations have brought us
and
here.
you've also let go of your own preconceived judgment and ideas. So you've let the space for them to experience. And because of that, and I think I don't think people realize the impact they have, not just, in my opinion, with words, but energetically, how they can create that space and create that harmonic, what I call the harmonic induction for another person to behave. Because I think if you would come in to tell the story, well, I have this author and she's a lesbian, and I think if you would come in with that more or less negative attitude, they would sense that, and they would be able to verbalize it differently. But because you came in with just an openness and said, hey, here's this author and her writing, and what do you think? And because you came in with more or less like a clean slate, so I think that's really how they react. So I always am intrigued how what part we attract or create the others.
It's true. You give back what you put in, and or you you get back what you put into something.
Or sometimes you get back what you don't put in, too.
Right, and that's a beautiful, wonderful thing.
Yeah.
Or sometimes a bad thing.
That's right.
But, yeah.
And what do you envision for like NCV? How would you like NCV to become?
Well, we've stocked many libraries in India so far in village schools, and I want to continue to do that because I've seen what a difference it's made. And we also started a writing fellowship, which is at Lincoln Memorial University, the Jean Ritchie Writing Fellowship, and that's been a wonderful thing. So maybe a few more writing fellowships. But our main focus, our main initiative right now is the Storylines Project and literacy work in India and the States. So we'll keep doing that, and I want to do more with health, which actually my father is in charge of, with more free health care and free healthcare education, teaching people how to better take care of themselves in mind and body.
You know, so but I think that's really wonderful that you have your family to support you for this,
Yeah.
and that every member of the family has a part in it,
Yeah.
and that you envisioned not just for the States but also globally. So
Yeah.
if the audience wants to know about NCV Foundation, there's a website, right?
ncvfoundation.org.
And then they can find out, can they recommend a book if they so great
Yeah,
about
that
this,
would be
you know?
great. There's some place on the website where you can click and send an email, and it'll work its way
Right,
through
to
the
you
people
and to find-
and yeah, I
And
would
to just
definitely
like
welcome
because
suggestions.
yeah, because
It's a
like so
great
many
idea.
people like read so many different
Yeah.
books, and I always think that wow, wouldn't be a great suggestion and say, hey, you know,
Right.
Dr. Vaswani or Neela, and you know,
Right.
what do you think about this book? And so just to open up a dialogue and
Yeah.
learn more, because we only have one mind, but I thought two brains sometimes better.
Absolutely.
Neela, I want to thank you so much for bringing 3 books, from sharing your grandfather's story, your grandmother's story, your whole family's story. Thank you again for being in the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
And good luck with NCV Foundations. Thank you, and watch us next time.